The cold was unlike anything Dr. Michael Harlow had ever experienced. Antarctica was a land of extremes, where the wind whipped so hard that even the most seasoned explorers felt as if the ice itself was trying to cut him to pieces. For centuries, the world had viewed Antarctica as a desolate wasteland, a place so isolated and uninhabitable that it held no value beyond its scientific study. But what if the truth was far more complex? What if something had been hiding beneath the ice for millennia, shielded from humanity's eyes? Michael, a geophysicist and veteran of numerous expeditions, had always been fascinated by Antarctica's mysteries. Beneath the miles of ice, scientists had discovered lakes, mountains, and rivers, an entire hidden world sealed off from the surface for millions of years. But that wasn't what brought him and his team to the frozen continent this time. A series of strange seismic readings, pulses that were too regular to be natural, had been detected deep under the ice. These signals had originated from an area no one had ever explored before, and the governments funding his research were eager to understand their origin. Some even whispered that they feared the signals were not of earthly origin. Weeks into the expedition, as they neared the source of the readings, things began to feel wrong. It wasn't just the extreme cold or the constant threat of hidden crevasses. It was something in the air, an oppressive weight that seemed to press down on the team the closer they got to their destination. Communication with their base camp grew sporadic, and more than once, the compass readings would go haywire, spinning wildly as if confused by some unseen magnetic force beneath them. Their final camp was set up less than a mile from the location where the pulses had been detected. Michael and his team huddled together, reviewing the data. The signals had grown stronger the closer they got, and now they seemed to be coming in regular intervals, almost like a heartbeat deep within the earth. "We're not alone out here," whispered Carla, the team's lead technician, her voice trembling despite her best efforts to remain calm. The words lingered in the frozen air, and no one dared respond. But Michael knew she was right. There was something waiting for them beneath the ice, something that had been hidden for eons. The next morning, with the sun barely peeking over the horizon, Michael and his team began drilling. It was slow, exhausting work. The ice was thick and unyielding, but after hours of drilling, the machines broke through. Below them, a vast cavern had been discovered, far larger than any they had anticipated. The seismic readings suggested that this space was ancient, older than the ice itself, and the team's instruments detected an unusual energy emanating from the depths. "We need to go down there," Michael said, his voice barely audible over the howling wind. They lowered a camera first, its bright lights illuminating the cavern below. What they saw on the monitor left them speechless. The walls were smooth and glistening, as if carved by something, or someone. Strange markings lined the stone, symbols none of them recognized, yet there was a haunting familiarity to them. Carla zoomed in on one of the symbols, her hands shaking as she realized what she was looking at. "These aren't just markings," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "They're writing. This is a language." "A language?" Michael echoed. But who, what could have carved these? No one had an answer, but one thing was clear. This wasn't just an ordinary cavern. Whatever was down there had been buried under the ice for longer than humanity had walked the earth. The team prepared to descend, outfitting themselves with the best climbing gear they had, and one by one, they lowered themselves into the abyss. The temperature dropped sharply as they went deeper into the cavern, their breath crystallizing in the air. The walls, smooth and oddly warm, were covered in more symbols, spiraling and twisting in ways that made Michael's head spin if he stared too long. There was a hum in the air now, a low-frequency sound that vibrated through their bones, making it hard to focus. As they reached the bottom of the cavern, the space opened up into a massive chamber. It was unlike anything they had ever seen before. In the center stood a monolithic structure, an enormous black stone obelisk that pulsed with the same rhythmic energy they had detected from above. The air around it shimmered with a faint glow, as if the stone itself was alive. "This is impossible," one of the scientists muttered, stepping forward in awe. "It's like nothing we've ever discovered on Earth." Michael approached cautiously, his instincts screaming at him to turn back, but his curiosity overrode his fear. As he drew closer to the obelisk, the symbols on its surface began to shift, glowing faintly with an eerie blue light. It was then that he realized, this wasn't just a monument or an ancient artifact. This was a machine. A machine that had been dormant for countless millennia. Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to tremble. The hum grew louder, and the obelisk pulsed faster, as if reacting to their presence. Carla grabbed Michael's arm, her eyes wide with panic. "We need to get out of here, now." Before they could react, a deep, resonant voice echoed through the chamber, though no mouth had spoken. It reverberated in their minds, a language they could not understand yet somehow comprehended. "You have awakened us." The chamber grew colder, and the air around the obelisk crackled with energy. The team backed away in terror, but Michael stood frozen, unable to tear his eyes away from the structure. He could feel it, something stirring beneath the ice, something ancient and powerful. It wasn't just the machine that had been dormant. Whatever controlled it, whatever had built it, was waking up. "What is this place?" Michael whispered, his breath coming in shallow gasps. "We were here long before your kind walked this earth," the voice said, resonating deep within their bones. "We built this world. You are intruders." The realization hit Michael like a sledgehammer. This wasn't just a lost civilization or an ancient artifact. This was something far older, something beyond human comprehension. The obelisk, the markings, the strange pulses, they weren't random. They were a warning. This place had been sealed off for a reason, and they had just broken that seal. The ground shook violently, and cracks began to form in the ice above them. The obelisk pulsed faster, the energy around it growing unstable. Michael turned to his team, his voice barely audible over the deafening roar. "Run!" They scrambled for the ropes, desperately trying to climb back to the surface, but the cavern was collapsing around them. The walls trembled, and massive chunks of ice fell from the ceiling, crashing into the ground with explosive force. Michael felt the temperature drop even further, and as he glanced back, he saw something emerging from the obelisk, a shadow, dark and amorphous, rising from the stone like smoke. The shadow grew, taking form, and in its wake, the temperature plummeted even further. Michael could feel it, an ancient intelligence, vast and incomprehensible, seeping into the air around them. It was older than humanity, older than the ice, older than the world itself. And it was angry. They reached the surface just as the cavern collapsed entirely, the ground beneath them caving in with a thunderous roar. The team collapsed in the snow, gasping for breath, their bodies shaking from the cold and the terror of what they had just witnessed. But as Michael looked back at the fissure they had just escaped from, he knew this wasn't over. The obelisk was still there, buried beneath the ice, and whatever they had awakened wasn't going to stay hidden for long. The world would never be the same again. Antarctica, the most isolated place on Earth, had kept its secret for centuries. But now, that secret was out. And Michael knew, deep in his bones, that humanity was not prepared for what was coming next. As the wind howled across the frozen wasteland, Michael could only think of one thing, the message left behind by the beings beneath the ice. You were never alone, and now, you will face the consequences of your discovery. The storm continued to rage around them, but the real storm, the one that would shake the very foundations of human understanding, was just beginning.